Yes, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Kino Corner. We talk about the very best in movies, news, and trailers from a certain point of view. I'm the Kaiju Kid. For the second week in a row, it's just me. But for those who don't know, sometimes it'll be just me. Sometimes I'll have a co-host and or a guest. But this time, little things happened. Not enough time to plan, so it's just me this time. Now, those who look at the bottom right, I can tell today we're talking about the Cornetto Trilogy. It's a trilogy of three movies by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Uh, they're called the Cornetto Trilogy for one very specific reason that I'll get into, but we're going to talk more about that when we get to the three movies themselves. Which side tangent there for those who don't know, I am going to start to rear this podcast so each weekly or each bi-weekly topic isn't so much about like a broad collection of all anthologies or all of this, all of that. We're gonna try to narrow it down to like a series, or like maybe we can narrow it down further so it's the same, like 3 to 5 movies, so everyone's on the same page. So that'll be reflected a bit in the wheel going forward, which we'll get to that at the end. But without further ado, I think it's time we go right into movie news. And quick disclaimer, a lot of side tangents. I apologize. But a quick disclaimer about that. The first bit of movie news that we're going to talk about is going to be a little heavy. It's something that some people may know, and it's going to be markedly different than some of the news that, well, let's face it, all the news after and the trailers we're going to talk about are of a more upbeat tone, I should say, or more positive than the first bit of news. So we're going to talk about this bit first. Uh, Robert Redford. I Well, I don't talk about every celebrity death that occurs. There's some that I do feel like if I have something to say, I think it's worth to give my 2 cents on and give someone the respect they deserve. Like I'm going to try to talk about the big ones. Lately, there have been a few that it's that I've missed, I haven't talked about, mostly because I haven't much to say. I almost didn't talk about Robert Redford, but when I look at his filmography, something did click to me. The picture I have on screen is the first picture I saw, and it was tied to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I didn't know anything about that movie. I had never seen it. I looked up; it's an old movie from the '60s. When I saw a recent photo of this man, I immediately recognized him from, oh, that's the guy from Captain America: Civil War. Not Civil War, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Eh, But that created this strange, like, whoa, what the heck? So I went to go look at this guy's film history, everything going on. Like, what is this guy's history? He's apparently done a heck of a lot, and oh yeah, he has. Like he's produced, he's acted in several movies, all dating back to the '60s. Like I said, he was in both Endgame and um, Captain America: Winter Soldier as Alexander Pierce. But he's been in everything from Pete's Dragon, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Let's Charlotte's. Some of us may know him. He voiced the horse in Charlotte's Web. That's another one that really stuck out to me. Is like, oh, I know more about this actor than I realized. He very much, and if you look through his filmography, I'm not going to say you're going to recognize, but for a filmography that goes as far back as 1960, and those westerns like Maverick, the showcases like Perry Mason, all the way up to newer things like the Untouchables, Virginia in the '60s again, boom up to the '80s and '90s. There's like All the President's Men, The Natural Light, and then into the '90s he started doing more kid things like The Horse Whisperer and Spy Game. this guy has run the gambit, even though he is his speciality is still just dramatic, serious roles. Love the Last Castle, absolutely. Yeah, and not everyone is gonna know everything about Robert Redford. Like I said, my first when I first saw this picture, I didn't know. I only recognized him when I saw the recent picture of him and said, "That's the guy from friggin' Captain America." I felt the need to bring up Robert Redford because he is one of those like I believe I guess the term for it is hidden gem, but he basically sits in the background behind all the A lists. But everyone to some degree has seen and I believe is beloved a movie he's in without realizing he's done a great job in it. He's a phenomenal actor who is just touched more people than you immediately realize. And I feel for this one, even though I don't address every celebrity death, I feel like I can give him the proper shout out, the proper consideration he deserves. So, to that end, before we start, the tone changes drastically. Boost the other actors without outshining them. Absolutely. But to that end, I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Robert Redford, an actor who, even though at the time I didn't know how much of an impact he shared, he will be missed in the world of cinema. Okay. Thank y'all for sharing in that. Now, full disclosure again, like when making the topics and news and trailers for this episode, there wasn't a lot. From here on out, you could tell from the bottom right, the tone's going to shift a bit. It's not going to take long for me to get laughy. So, going to whiplash aside, this picture is probably going to be the first step of, oh, that's different. This news is probably the one I had the least to say about. There's going to be a live action uh, My Hero Academia, and it's going to be the same guy who did the live action Bleach and I believe Rurouni Kenshin. I'm going to have to look this up, but yeah, worry fills my mind. I know. No, it's going to take a while. Like, look, I just know what's coming, and I'm going to get me more bombastic when I talk about trailers. But like, whenever we do, welcome Stonewall, by the way. But whenever we do any talk about celebrity deaths, it's always awkward because a lot of the topics I end up talking about on this podcast are going to be a little more upbeat, are going to be a little more upbeat, are going to be a little more. I could be ranting and raving about Godzilla for 30 minutes or something, but and also sometimes the news and trailers that are dropped that week are just so fair warning because I know one of the trailers I'm going to talk about if you've seen it is very tonally on the opposite spectrum of talking about Robert Redford. Get this out of the way quickly. Yes, because it would feel weird if I were to talk about something like, "Oh my God, live action My Hero Academia." By the way, rest in peace, Robert. It'd feel weird. It'd feel awkward. So and above all else, less respectful to the actor I'm trying to. But yeah, that's why we do it first. Um, yes, live action My Hero Academia. My thoughts on this are minimum. We don't know a whole lot other than we do have the director Shinsuke. Let me. Is it Shinsuke? Correct. Shinsuke Sato. That's his name. Uh, he did Bleaching Kingdom. Look, I haven't seen them, and I've heard that amongst the live action plethora of anime things, they're I've heard mixed things. But I also know general audiences suck. I can't take anyone's word on anything. I, I The only live action anime I have any real consistent opinion on is the live action One Piece. I am a huge One Piece fan, and I think the live action series was fine. I think for what we had, it was good. I'm excited for season two. I but that's a whole different creature. This is a movie, or yeah, it's a full film, not a series. I had to double take on that, and I just have to wonder because I remember reading MHA when it first came out. How far is the movie gonna go? Because my first thought then is, are they just gonna go to the hero exam? Basically, like the first exam is to enroll him into the actual academia. Because that I mean that big robot can serve as the big climax of the film, I guess. But then the whole thing would just be a precursor, or they could just say screw it and just start in the middle and just no, no, this this is better not squeeze too much into it, then it'll just feel rushed. Exactly my worry. It's if they start from the beginning, it's going to feel like they're not going to be able to accomplish anything. But if they start in the middle, it's going to run the risk of alienating certain people who feel like they need to know certain information about Midoriya, which for those who've read it, it's kind of important. I also can't help but feel, because I brought up One Piece, that to some degree, I think the influx of all these live action things is because of One Piece success. Not saying One Piece is like the game changer. I'm just like, some things work for a reason. Uh, But I love to be wrong. I was against One Piece from the beginning. Oh, the One Piece live action from the beginning is like, that's not really a series you could do live action. And this one, I think, visually is more fitting. Tonally, I don't know. But like I end up been saying a lot recently, it's done the best so far. I think yes, it's done the best so far. But for My Hero Academia, it's I have to I want to be wrong. I want to be like really worried about this and just say like I don't know if that could work. End up watching this movie and come out saying, hey, that's pretty good. That's what I want for every film. Even if I'm a little apprehensive about it, I want every film to be as good as it can be. So if I'm like talking about, I don't know if this could work, that's like legitimate worry based off of what I know about all the other things it's adapting. And adapting anime to live action is rough. This is just one of those that like, yes, you can make the actors look like the characters more accurately than most of their anime, but tonally and pacing wise, this might be something that would work better as a series. I don't know, but we'll see. Like this, I think it depends on what group are they after. Is it already fans or the ones who don't know? And that's the other thing. Part of the reason the live action One Piece I think worked is because it, much to the chagrin of One Piece fans, it cut out a lot. It cut out a few things, changed a few things, and in some ways abridged it. It made it accessible for general audiences. And I think they're probably going to keep that trend with this, assuming it's for general audiences, because I don't know if this is like it is co-produced by Netflix and Legendary. So that's the weird thing. That's the big elephant in the room as well. Yeah. Yeah, and this is going to be an English language thing. This isn't going to be a Japanese live. This is an English thing. Enough to enjoy and possibly pique interest in the source. We'll see. This is I can't say, but yeah, ultimately, all we know is Shinsuke Sato, who did Bleach and Kingdom, is doing this. It's happening, so whatever your feelings on that, we'll know more later. And eventually, whenever we get a full trailer, I want to talk about it a little bit more. I want to give my response, but we'll see. And the only other piece of news to I there was a lot of news recently. Most of it is gaming related, but this is not a gaming podcast. I'm trying to. This is a film podcast. I have opinions on games, but I'll keep that elsewhere. One is the Mario Galaxy movie. This is the last piece of major news I believe is worth addressing. Thank you for the sub, Stonewallen. Now, Feelings for Nintendo aside, and I know a lot of people have Nintendos, or a lot of feelings about Nintendo. Um, I liked the Mario Brothers movie. It wasn't perfect, but looking at it as only a hey, I grew up with Mario and I just want to see get the feeling of those games in movie form. I got exactly that in the first Mario Brothers movie. Unlike a few of my friends, I don't hate Illumination Studios. I really like Despicable Me. I like Sing. I think Sing is a great freaking movie. It's silly, it's dumb, but I'm a sucker for goofy musicals. I'm sorry. But no, plus objectively, their animation is, even though it's very cartoonish and simple in their designs, they are good animators. The 1993 movie? No, 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 not the night. Well, I did like the 1993 movie. I forgot I have to be specific with the names, but the recent Mario Brothers movie, the animated one, the Illumination did. But that one is getting a sequel. Everyone thought with the teaser at the end of it showing Yoshi that it would be Super Mario Brothers World. And instead, Nintendo Illumination like this one, the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And well, I understand why people are let down because there is, I think, enough story to address with the Koopa Kids. However, and I've put in some thought, and like this is my lore brain talking because I like whenever I talk about think about a sequel to a movie, I don't think about what I want to see like from the source material it came from. I think about like what did they accomplish in the first movie? How can that continue? And that's the part I think a lot of people overlook. And I thought about like the Koopa Kids, and like there's not really a good way to introduce them into the canon of the recent Illumination movie without things getting awkward, or at least confirming that they're not Peach's kids. And if they are Peach's kids, that's going to be in very uncomfortable territory. Because there's, like, theory crafters for Nintendo properties are absurd. But the big elephant in the room on the Super Mario Brothers World movie would be Yoshi and the Koopa Kids, because and then there's the whole fact of well, it would just be the first one again, but this time maybe it's Mario and Luigi going on a world tour to stop the Koopa Kids and save Peach. It's a instead of just the unlikely heroes, it's just the standard adventure. But is that what people would want to see? So even though it's not what we expected, and I want to see a trailer to confirm this, I'm okay with Mario Galaxy being the direct sequel. And if this is just going to be a world building movie, because the Bowser they've already established with Jack Black, they've already kind of beaten him. They already have a means to beat him here. He'd be looking outside of the this little world. So I don't know. It's what I'm ultimately trying to say is this not being a Super Mario Brothers World movie to me is not as offensive as some Nintendo haters and fanboys would have you believe. I'm just sitting here so like, oh good, I liked the first one. Like I enjoyed reliving all these childhood memories. I hope the second one is good too. That is my general feelings on this specific thing. So, and I hear like, hey, this Mario Bros. Movie getting a sequel. Cool. It's going to be based on Mario Galaxy. Oh, that's interesting. Neat. Those are my general thoughts. It's again, I'm gonna give more specific thoughts because it all is going to come down to execution. And of course, I want to see the trailer before I make any specific judgments. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Now, that's the last of the news. Like I said, this was a very light week and for news, but and there's a light week for trailers too. There's two main trailers to talk about, and one I just threw in there because I found it in the backlog and it seemed funny. But the first is a movie that's probably closer in terms of the person I can talk. It's called Dust Bunny, but Mads Mikkelsen is the main actor here. This one I found this trailer I found so intriguing for it. It hit a core memory in the beginning and then just completely upended what I thought it was going to be. So I know this is going to sound weird. The movie's called Dust Bunny, and and it's basically centered around Mads Mikkelsen and this kid, and the kid is basically trying to get like monsters under her bed and just picturing everything going on using these like monstrous dust bunnies. My mind of all the weird things. Remember the show Rugrats? There was an episode where Chucky was scared of dust bunnies, and he imagined this weird, slimy, dusty, big old dust bunny coming over under his bed and taking him to his dust bunny lair. And I was like, is this just a movie version of that weird, obscure fear? No, it's not. It's a little more specific and kind of abstract than that, because there's not a monster. It's actually like kidnappers and very real threats, and the kid is internalizing this as because it's a kid, and that's how she's processing what's going on. While Mads Mikkelsen's character protects her from all the things that go bump in the night, which end up being well people. And you know that sounds kind of cool. Like now, granted, my pull to this movie is based off a very specific memory of a very specific show, and I'm the monster movie guy. I'm going like if you give me put a monster movie in front of me, I'm gonna be gawking at the effects. So when I first saw this and thought like, whoa, this are like monstrous dust bunnies. It's called Dust Bunny. Things under the bed. Like, whoa, this is more real. Like the subversion caught me off guard, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it. This Dust Bunny is definitely it's going to be for a specific group of people. It's not a full action movie, I would say. Definitely more drama and suspense, but there is action in it. Mads Mikkelsen's going to beat up somebody. Let's be real. But like this trailer, I was expecting one thing with the name in the first few seconds. It it showed me something else, something new, and it's definitely a trailer that is worth a watch in my opinion. Now, the second trailer is one that I am adding. This is one that first off, this is basically a cutoff of the poster. If you're watching this, if you look at the top right of the image, that's the tagline. It's going to tell you exactly everything you need to know about the tone of this damn movie. Pardon my French, but this movie is called Coyotes. Basically, from what I could tell in the synopsis and from what I could tell in the context of the trailer, this takes place in California. The recent bushfires and other urban development has basically pushed all the wild coyotes in the area to basically wander around, and they're kind of basically end up like in this neighborhood in people's houses and they're eating people. That's it. That's the movie. Like, and on one hand, I respect it because I mentioned this a bit ago when I started talking. I think it was 2 episodes ago when I talked about there was a shark movie that I talked about, I'm glad that the idea of just killer animal movies, just the simples are coming back because yeah, look, you don't have to do anything special with something like a coyote or a shark we know to some degree these things are scary. It's about the situation they're in. So when the situation is like, oh, all these coyotes are now like because of the bushfires and urban development, they're weak, they're hungry, they're now kind of in human area, and they're gonna see like people by themselves at night, and they're just gonna swarm and attack them and eat them. That is a very I don't know a whole lot about coyotes, but the suspension of disbelief for that specific scenario is believable enough. It's like, yeah, no, I could see that happening. I could see a bunch of vicious coyotes eventually killing people. I wouldn't be surprised if it has. So to one degree, I respect the movie's simple and believable premise. But as I mentioned, this is not a serious movie. Look at the tagline Eat the Rich. Justin Long's in it. This is a comedy. And the more that were apparent in the last line in the trailer where you have like this lady talking to Justin Long. It's not the one in the cover here. He's like, "Oh my god, this is just like that movie where all the killer birds attack." And Justin Long character look over and goes, "The birds? No, 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 that's not the net." It's like, okay, it doesn't seem like a particularly funny comedy. It just seems like, I guess, dumb comedy. It's the kind of dumb where like you might get a little every few minutes, but you're not there for the comedy. You're there to watch a bunch of idiots get eaten by coyotes, and that's what this movie seems to revel in. Like you're there, a bunch of idiots are about to get eaten by coyotes. Let's not beat around the bush here. So I, to some level, I respect this movie, but to some level I'm also rolling my eyes. I had to bring this up because this is a movie that didn't really get any press. When I was looking through the list of trailers and news, like there was a lot of bare and like there was not a lot, but then I saw this. I was like, whoa, I need to talk about this. This is this is a, as long as it's better than that VHS short he did edited, I think I'm in. That's the thing, dude. When I saw the name Justin Long and Coyotes, I honestly, here, and I'll talk about this more in the next segment, but VHS, a lot of the shorts in those series went on to make full movie versions of like the short. Like one of the most notable is there was a slumber party short in VHS 2 that turned into the full thing Kids versus Aliens. But again, talk about that in a bit. But I thought this was going to end up being a full version of that. No, no, it's not gross. It's not body horror. It's just coyotes. And again, I gotta respect how straightforward they are. Like it's like I can't bring myself to laugh too much at this movie because if you're gonna be honest about, like, this movie is called Coyotes, it's about coyotes and they eat people. They're not false advertising here. Movie's called Coyotes. The taglines "Eat the Rich." If you, what do you think is gonna happen in this movie? Like, no, even from the trailer, I'm like, I don't know what else I'm expecting from this movie. I don't know if it's something I'm gonna go. It's not something I'm gonna go see in theaters. Like, I got limited movie passes, and considering when this one comes out, there's gonna be other things I'd rather see. But yeah, but that's neither here nor there. But the last trailer, I have more words on. Oh lordy, do I have words on this? My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns. No, I'm kidding. But who, seriously, who didn't expect that freaking song in the Anaconda trailer? Okay, so we covered the announcement of this a while ago that Jack Black and Paul Rudd were going to be in an Anaconda remake. It was going to be a meta, sort of a meta comedy. I said then that whether or not this works is going to live and die by the comedy and the dynamic of the main two actors. And I stand by that. From now, I'll probably touch on them last. So, for the concept, for those who haven't seen the trailer, definitely watch it. But basically, these two friends go to remake Anaconda. They don't get a lot of money, so they're doing it for basically for much cheaper than they should. They have a snake handler. They have like of course a real snake here. They go on a little charter cruise to actually film it. Well, on the, you know what, on the Amazon. Well, it seems the Amazon. I hope it's the Amazon. If they said it in the trailer, I missed it. But they're just trying to end up making this. They do a scene with this snake. It's one of those animal actors that's actually good around people. Balrod's character freaks out, knocks the snake away, ends up hitting it, and I'm not sure what exactly happens. My guess is because it is a small snake and it was in captivity, so it is weak. This is something, from what I understand, does happen with pet snakes and why you have to be careful. but it hit it so hard it killed the dang thing and knocked it into the water. I've actually not seen the original Anaconda all the way through. I might fix that later. You should. It's one of those. It's silly, but it's dumb. Yeah, it's silly, but it's dumb. No, it's good, but it's dumb. It's what I should say. But basically, like, they want to make Anaconda. Through some mishap, they end up killing the Anaconda they use for their movie, only to discover there is a giant anaconda where they're at, and now it's no longer a movie. They're actually fighting for their lives. And yeah, like, it's wrapping around meta in ways we can only imagine. And that sheer concept, like, I really like when movies get creative in their concept. The first movie that comes to mind with that is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which the most Nick Cage movie Nick Cage has ever been in. Fantastic movie. It's as a very meta approach to like what movie they're in, what movie they're making, and everything. It seems very tonally similar to this. I won't spoil it. So, premise wise, this seems like no notes. If you're gonna, if you can't remake something directly, you got to have fun with it. So it's all going to be down to the specifics. One is the snake itself. The snake is CG, and I don't want to be that guy. I love practical effects. I've loved practical effects since I've watched all the Man in a Suit Godzilla movies. However, can anybody think of a way to do a practical snake that doesn't end up looking stupid? Like, the first Anaconda is probably like the best a practical snake will ever look. So to that end, I think there should be at least some shots of a practical snake in this movie, and there might be. We haven't seen the full thing. We basically got a glimpse of the anaconda. But even with that, like, when it starts moving and attacking people, if you were surprised that this is going to be a CG, come on. Like, I'm not saying it looks better. I'm not saying it needs to be CG, but I have come to terms a while ago with just most monster movies nowadays are going to at least be partially CG. So we need to be able to judge it. Not like, if we're going to judge this snake, we shouldn't say like, oh, it sucks because it's a CG and not the live action. No, we should judge the CG. And from what little I see during the dark shots, like the shot by the when they're kind of peering through the window, the little window, and they see it, I like that shot a lot. Like, the best way to cover up bad CG effects as actually lighting tricks, and a lot of recent like monster movie like filmmakers are discovering this. VHS filmmakers do it a lot, but and they do a lot of lighting tricks with this one. They do a lot of they only show the snake when they absolutely need to. So I don't know. It doesn't. It's not going to win any awards, but I see this thing. It's like, oh, that doesn't look bad. So now, that all being said, like I said, this film is going to live and die based off of how Paul Rudd and Jack Black act, and how they work individually, and how they work together. So Jack Black has a bit of a history in recent films, and I know some people are a little bit annoyed with him for being just the guy, the man child, the guy who just he's gonna be gonna say all these bombastic things, flint and steel. But that's not what he's. I think he's capable of more, and it makes me so happy that when I see him act in this, what I see is, I don't see the Jack Black that was acting as Bowser. I don't see the Jack Black that was acting in the Minecraft movie. I see the Jack Black from King Kong. I see the Jack Black that is playing a weird character, but playing it as seriously as he can to try to get those realistic uh, out of this. balls to the wall emotions out there. And it's like it's not completely mellowed out. It's not going to be like it's not what's like the winter holiday or like, well, what's that? Um, oh goodness, there was a weird. Let's see, Bernie. That's what it is. It's not going to be like Bernie, where I'm sorry, my brain. Thank goodness I have the computer next to me. It's not going to be like Bernie, where he's going to play it serious, dramatic, and capable of these sort of things. It's not like that, but it's closer to that than it is to something like Minecraft. And I think that's one of the, like, if Jack Black's going to do a comedy, that's when I think he's going to do really good comedy. Like, and so he's still the more bombastic, assertive, like, we got to do this, man, let's do this. But it's not over the top as you'd think. Couple that with Paul Rudd and, well, what he's good at. He's good at being the kind of the wimp, kind of the, I guess we're doing this now. He's the, like, and he kind of goes along with his friend. He kind of goes along with the situation. Maybe he's being tethered along, and you could tell that from the trailer. You could tell, at least to some extent, when one person is kind of like leading the charge, while one's kind of being pulled along. And that's not bad. It's like, it could just be how their characters work. But Paul Rudd delivers it very, very well. Like, because it's like that first scene's enough to tell you, like, this is something they've talked about, remaking Anaconda. Like, as soon as they're like, we got to remake Anaconda, it's like, wait, yes, wait. It's like he actually thinks before he lets, like, the emotions of reality, like, before he lets the emotion take over. He lets reality sink in a little bit. Like, he helps ground the Jack Black a bit. And it like, I don't know if they're going to end up being like the great comedy duo of like 2025 or 2026, whenever when this comes out. However, but based solely off of the trailer, it seems like they actually could work well together, and this movie might be up there with like some like recent like movies like The Death of a Unicorn, for just kind of those like, oh, these are like surprisingly good, surprisingly funny monster movies. Nice. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this. I might actually go see this one in theaters. It's it it's not what you expect when you hear Anaconda is going to be remade. It looks funny without being obnoxious. It At least from my perspective. I know some people are tired of like just this style of humor. So if it's not your thing, I totally get it. For my money, as the monster guy, I didn't know what to expect when I saw this. Pleasantly surprised by a very original approach, and I'm excited to see it. So yeah, let me know what y'all think about the trailers I talked about, for sure. We're all formulating those thoughts. New and recent films. This is, of course, the before we get to our main topic. This is the last thing we talk about on the show. This segment is for if there's any new movies we watched and want to talk about. This is, generally speaking, this is like brand new movies, things we've recently saw in theaters, or movies that are like, maybe it's something that's new to you. Maybe it's something that's been out for a minute, but like you finally saw something for the first time, and you just like, oh, I need to give my thoughts on. So new to you, with a bit of a priority on actually like new releases in theater. Like, I'm going to be talking about a few things probably in the next two episodes. But the thing I wanted to talk about lightly is the VHS series, because over the past 2 weeks I have binged the whole thing, like one or two movies a day. I think the actually no, one day I had to watch two because I watched Viral and it was ass, and then we had to watch 94 after that. Thank goodness we did. Oh my gosh, 94 was so. But these movies are found footage anthology movies mostly. There's one exception. There's one short that is an exception, but these never. Well, I don't know about never, but these films to me have such varying quality. Yeah, you have to talk about them like together. Like you have to. Well, you have to talk about them separately, I should say, because I feel for each movie very differently. This isn't as simple as oh they get better as they go along. Well, there's some that are better than others, and they're kind of towards the middle. VHS Viral is smack dab in the middle of everything right now, and it's by far the worst one, no contest. I hated VHS Viral, but this, I can say that they're worth watching, even for how bad Viral is. They're all so unique and offer these very unique takes on like horror stories that it's worth checking out. I won't go into profound detail about how I felt about each one. There is a reason we'll get to later at the end of the show. But I will say that each movie it it appeals to a different type of horror fan. Like because they have all these themes. Like the first three are basically like a pseudo trilogy that begins in kind of a lot of development stuff. But after that, each one has a theme like this based off of the year, and then there's VHS Beyond, which is sci-fi themed. The next one coming out in October 3rd, I believe, is basically is VHS Halloween, which is supposed to be Halloween themed. So the, there is shorts and themes for everyone, everything from the supernatural to just a straight up like sci-fi horror. Excuse me, but they're all worth a watch. It becomes then a question of when you watch one of the VHS movies, which segment's your favorite, which was your least favorite. Not like which, and that's the beauty of anthologies to me. Is as long as you liked at least some of the stories, you're gonna end up liking it. And the VHS movies made me happy that to some degree anthologies are alive and they're worth watching. They're mostly on Shutter. Some are like free access, like but you I think you can get the early ones off Tubi, the rest off of Shutter. They're definitely worth watching. But that's all I really had to say about new and recent films. There's other things I am watching, but until I have finished them, I'd really rather not give my opinions when I haven't finished. I want to give my full opinion on things, which will probably be next time. Next time. But without further ado, and yes, we're already a bit in here. This is going to end up being a shorter episode than I think some would probably register the Stonewall. And if you're still here, typically my episodes vary in length. 2 hours is the normal run time, but I also usually have a guest or co-host here to kind of bounce a few ideas off of. Again, planning this time, things happen in the background. No one called out. It's just things happened. I wasn't able to plan. So this is an oddity to be sure. Now, that brings us to the Cornetto Trilogy. What is the Cornetto Trilogy? Cornetto Trilogy is three movies by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead. Well, technically, Shaun of the Dead came first, then Hot Fuzz, then The World's End. they are all very, very different movies. Shaun of the Dead is a horror comedy about a zombie apocalypse, and it asks the question of how does a country that bans guns, how does that country deal with the approach of zombies? Hot Fuzz is like another horror comedy about cults. It's like how far will a town go to achieve the what they call the greater good, and and of course the mystery of like who do you trust in the town, who is doing all these heinous things, who is on your side. It is, I think Hot Fuzz is my personal favorite of the three, and of course The World's End, a bar crawl turned alien escapade about aliens taking over a town, and I won't say any more than that because the reveal about who, why, and how is too funny. But what makes these the Cornetto Trilogy? You may have noticed, if you're watching, I have this Cornetto ice cream cone. It is quite delicious. And that is the only thing that ties these movies together is there is direct scenes of the characters holding Cornetto ice creams. That is literally it. And technically they're all made by Edgar Wright, star Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost. But the important thing is there are scenes where they're eating Cornetto's ice cream. That is the only reason this trilogy is called the Cornetto Trilogy and not like the Edgar Wright trilogy or something like that. It is very silly, and I accept it. But I guess the best way to talk about these movies is to talk about them one movie at a time. So let's start from the very first one, Shaun of the Dead. So if I were to rate this movie, I would say a solid 8 out of 10. Solid. Like it is not my favorite movie of all time. Like there's some characters I don't particularly like in this movie, but you're not supposed to like them. And but the bigger thing is, of course, I think some parts in the they kind of drag, but the the main characters like Simon Pegg, there was a Sean played by Simon Pegg, his roommate slash best friend Ed played by Nick Frost, and he had a like all yeah, the girlfriend, which was I believe it was Diane was her name. Oh, oh no, Liz. Liz, that's her. That's the name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Diane was the friend, but the those three characters fantastic. It, so you asked the question: how does a country that bans guns, how do they deal with a zombie apocalypse? And well, not well. First off, there's a really fun meta commentary about how quickly some people would even catch on to a zombie apocalypse with how just zombie like people are in day to day. Like you have zombies shambling across like this alleyway. One day they pass him when they came, and one day they come by, they see this zombie. They're just talking, and there's this really stupid scene. It's really funny, but really stupid, where they kind of look and they point to the zombie in the hallway. Like they're just having a good time. They're not realizing what's happening and like, oh, there's zombies going on. When they finally realize it, it's all about just making this plan to survive using these heroes that are vastly unqualified and unprepared for what is going on. And God, the amount of just well, you're in the shit now, so you better get to it is just perfect. You're gonna hear me say this for each movie. There's not an exception for this. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are fantastic. They act wonderfully in all three of these movies. Like they are to me like a true to form like comedy pair. Like I would, I think that like if we didn't already have Tucker and Dale versus Evil with Alan Tudyk and the other actor I can forget, I would say, oh please, please pass Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They're like the next Tucker and Dale if we didn't already have actors for them. They fit that dynamic so perfectly with each other. They have I would say they split up. They've tried different movies both separately and together since then. But this is the trilogy that I think showed the general populace, like the whole of pop culture. Oh, these guys are funny, and it started with Shaun of the Dead. Like because, like I said, these are these. Simon Pegg is playing a very unqualified person during a zombie apocalypse, dealing with his best friend and roommate, who is even more lazy, unqualified, and just not helpful at all during everything that's transpiring. I'm not going to go into spoilers about what happens to their characters. It is very funny, but like my ultimate thought on this movie is it is one of the funniest zombie movies I have ever seen. I, I think it even beats out. I think the two funniest zombie comedies. Shaun of the Dead is the funniest zombie comedy. It's a very specific niche thing, but it is the funniest zombie comedy. But the second place to me is Warm Bodies, which we're not talking about that. But oh my god, bitches, man, great movie. But not to mention like a though the impact of a comedy, I think some people nowadays would kind of measure like, oh, how quotable is it? How memeable is it? Which I disagree with. But even then, this movie is very quotable. Shaun of the Dead's very quotable, very memeable. Mm, ice cream. But like I think everyone who's seen this movie is gonna stick in their head forever. Just then we all go for a nice big pint, wait for all this to blow over. Like that's just gonna live in their heads rent free forever because the line execution, the impact on the story, it's all amazing. Shaun of the Dead, 8 out of 10, fantastic movie, extremely funny. If you haven't seen it yet, it's I think it's like a staple of horror comedy. I, uh, unlike I would say all three of these movies, Shaun of the Dead is like the staple of horror comedy because it's so intrinsically more tied to horror than the other two. But yeah, that's it. Shaun of the Dead, 8 out of 10, great. Now the next movie they made in the Cornetto trilogy, not a sequel. These are not the same characters. Again, these are only the Cornetto trilogy because there are scenes in all three movies where they have Cornetto ice cream cones. There is no other reason. But this movie is called Hot Fuzz. Basically, a try-hard cop named Nicholas Angel, played by Simon Pegg. He's basically because through this one of the wildest and dumbest excuses I've heard because he basically fixed crime in that stretch of London. He made it so no other cops have anything to do. So they and no because he's such a workaholic, no one really likes him. So in order so the cops can get some of their share of the glory, have something to do, and to even things out, they said like, "Oh, we're relocating you to this small town. Yeah, over in this village. Yeah, yeah. We're not trying to get you out of our hair, but they send him to this village, and everything about the village they do for the greater good. Is to there's curfews, there's everything. The new cops have seem to be a whole bunch of do nothings and let stupid things slide. But there is a reason. There is a mystery here about like some things going on in the village, and I won't go any more story detail about like what they're after in the village, who is doing what, who can be trusted, who is against you. like and what the ultimate resolution is. But just like with the last movie, you're going to be quoting this the planning phase. This movie is going to have you going for the greater good every time. This is my personal favorite. If I were to rate this one 9 out of 10, and I this one to me, like, it has the comedy that Shaun of the Dead didn't. I personally think that Hot Fuzz is funnier than Shaun of the Dead, but it's not as tense or scary. So yes, it edges the comedy, but it's also supposed to be edge out things like mystery and a little bit of suspense in there, and it does those fine. It does those fine. It does its job. It just doesn't do them as well as Shaun of the Dead does the actual like horror and messed up parts. Like Shaun of the Dead, I think it's a staple because it understands both aspects of what it is better. Everything is clearly defined. Is this a horror comedy about zombies? You're watching a horror comedy about zombies. You watch Hot Fuzz, you hear, oh, this is supposed to be a comedy suspense movie, uh, or a comedy slash mystery about a cop being redirected to a new village, learning a few things. It doesn't take long for the mystery and suspense to wear down, and then it's just comedy. But the comedy is like really good comedy. I can't like if I were to be objective, I would give this probably the same rating as an 8 out of 10, same rating as Shaun of the Dead for my personal preference because I do prefer the comedy is the primary. And to that end, I would personally give Hot Fuzz a 9 out of 10. And I like it so much more than Shaun of the Dead. It's so much worth it. And before I get to the last one, I do want to take a short break talking about these to understand if you've never seen an Edgar Wright movie, the best explanation, like there's a few films you could look at as like what his visual style is. The most recent being Last Night in Soho, but two that I think maybe people more likely saw would be Baby Driver and Scott Pilgrim versus the World. If you've seen either of those movies, you have a nice little picture of, oh, that's the style. So imagine if you've seen in those movies, you have a zombie movie in just that kind of like little bombastic, crazy style, or like you understand. Like Edgar Wright does, he does more down to earth comedies, but takes these down to earth moments and makes them feel more uh big and extra than they are. I think Baby Driver is a great example of that, where you have like for God's sakes, one of the songs is "Hocus Pocus" by Focus. There's a chase scene to it, it's and it is a cop chase. And any other movie would just have just intense music and last like a few seconds. You have the entirety of "Hocus Pocus" by Focus, and you're like driving down the highway, all these cars, switching to a new car, running from building to building. It is just like everything feels elevated to this almost absurd degree. Like the most, and this elevated mundanity is probably a good way to put it. But that's kind of like it's perfect for these three movies because they're also, well, to a point, British comedy, and that's British comedy works when things are exaggerated. So yeah, if to understand like Edgar Wright, he is it is like absurd mundanity is a good way to put what he does. His movies are very funny but very good, and it's very fitting for his style. Definitely see his other movies otherwise. Now, all of that being said, the last movie in the Cornetto Trilogy is called The World's End. I do agree with the general audience. It's the lesser of the three, and I think lesser is probably the best word for it. Like I can't bring myself like, oh, what's the worst of the Cornetto trilogy? Well, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's still good. It's still a very good movie. It's just Now, I mentioned there was a mystery in this one. It was a bar crawl that turned into this whole big thing. The problem is, like, this seems to be somewhere in between like a this is mixing comedy with the tones that were already kind of explored both in Shaun of the Dead with like the horror aspect of it and Hot Fuzz with that thriller mystery bit on it. And I think it works to this film's detriment that there are times where there's just too much going on. And it's like too many things to generally keep up with. It's still a very funny movie. It's still like I do think the last third of it is one of the funniest moments of the Cornetto trilogy with when they ultimately find out the cause of all this and talk to a certain character and everything going on with it. I still fully believe that is one of like it has funnier moments than the other two, but on the whole, this is like a 7 out of 10. Still very good, but the flaws are more apparent. Mostly because like we've done a lot of this before, so they really had to like end on a banger. Like this, we 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 should have gotten something like Men in Black 3, which closed out that trilogy beautifully. And if you're gonna do like a third movie in the Cornetto trilogy after two solid movies, like we just needed the movie to be as good or better. And it just kind of started with a bang and ended with a whimper. But as for the why, like at World's End, as I said before, it's a bar crawl. Basically, some friends are reuniting to finally do something that they wanted to do for a while. It was basically a bar crawl to the World's End. And the World's End is the name of a bar. It marks like the end of this whole tour. Basically, they go bar to bar, have a pint, have a laugh, go to the next one. Full on bar crawl. It's basically the last hurrah of a bunch of friends before their lives fully drift apart. And that's and good to be honest, that premise solid. Like the more sim the that's why I feel so weird saying this is probably the lesser of the three. Like the simpler the premise, the better your movie is for it. Because like we don't need like you to overly explain everything. Like these friends are getting together for a bar crawl. There's something weird going on. They're slowly starting to notice, and that's pretty much it. It's just them being thrusted into this weird situation. It's just how the actors react to that situation feels familiar. Like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead are different enough. Like the style of comedy might be similar, but the tones of both of those movies are different enough. They are very distinct from one another. Whereas World's End is kind of in the middle as far as tone. Like you could talk about Hot Fuzz and World's End in the same breath when you talk about things like culture and conspiracy. You can talk about World's End and Shaun of the Dead in the same breath when you talk about horror. But you and that feels weird when you can't talk about Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz without in the same breath other than Edgar Wright. It feels weird that this one is so tonally similar when the other two weren't, and it makes it stick out. And now I don't want to talk too much garbage or sound like I'm overly criticizing this movie when I'm not. Like I'm just again got to call a spade here. This is still a really funny movie. It's just not as funny as the two before it. And I'm going to recommend all three of these movies by Edgar Wright. Heck, I just recommend Edgar Wright as a filmmaker in general. His movies are incredibly fun. Uh, But if you were to watch these, there's not really a good order to watch these. It's just watch any of them at your leisure. But let's see. Like if you really want, like Amazon Prime should have all of these. Like as of recording this, Amazon Prime seems to have like the most of the Cornetto trilogy. Confirm that here. Yeah, but that's as of recording. If I my personal recommendation, watch all three. Fantastic movies, like super funny. My personal favorite, Hot Fuzz. Shame, like it's the most quotable in my opinion. Great or good. Oh, real shame that. It you'll know when you watch, but without just basically just stroking these movies off, I could say is these movies are a fantastic watch. So grab yourself an ice cream cone and go watch yourself the Cornetto trilogy. They're all worth a watch. They're all fantastic. I and for those new, if you're still here, this isn't a show we're going to typically dive into the the making of. My approach is I am a monster movie fan. I'm just actually not that. I'm a movie fan. I will talk about actors and filmmakers if it's worth noting or interesting, but the perspective I want to bring when I talk about these movies is I love these movies and they make me laugh, they make me happy. I just want to share the casual fan view experience with people. I'm not going to try too hard like most reviewers about like, oh, but I have to have the true voice because I know everything about it. Look, I could look a whole bunch of stuff up and I know, when I do that, I know exactly as much as most people do. The most valuable thing that I can offer in this podcast is my personal opinion about these movies and how they made me feel, like what I like about them, what I recommend them. And this is like the same thing applies to my guests. Like my host, I guess, like my co-host, my guests, like they recommend it? Do they like them? This is a medium where me and whoever joins me is going to just rant and rave about how much we love or hate something for an hour and a half or however long it takes. So if you're expecting some in-depth view on the films of Edgar Wright, why Nick Frost and Simon Pegg work great together as this comedic duo, the background details of all the practical effects and gun effects of Hot Fuzz. Look, this is not. I'm just saying, man. I really like this movie. I recommend all three of these movies, and they're worth a watch. That's what you're getting out of me. And that's why also why I want to condense the topics a little bit. I've been doing very broad topics, and for those who've been watching for a while know it's been harder for me to really talk about broad things without trying to dip too far into specifics. So with that brings us to my closing argument. This is a shorter episode than usual. For those who don't know, like I said, typically an hour and a half to 2 hours is a, a, a good estimation of how these episodes go. So, but this one's gonna be a little shorter. Again, it's just me. I'm trying to exercise time on this one by keeping everything to a minimum here. This is a good exercise of that. Now, the last thing we do every episode is we have this wonderful, wonderful thing called the wheel. Now, the wheel is a wheel of topics. Basically, I'm going to spin the wheel, and depending on where it lands, is going to be the theme for the next one. For the next now, the next one is going to be depending on where it lands, will change might change a few things, but we'll cross that bridge when I get there. Now, going from bottom to top, there's Jaws, the Cloverfield trilogy. Yes, there were three of them. They are very weird. Critters. This is just like the four Critters movies. I was about to put that as Tiny Terrors, but like I said, no, keep it specific. We touched on a Gremlins a little bit a few weeks ago, so let's give the other hairballs a chance to shine before I really talk about Gremlins again. There's family friendly Halloween. This is a broad topic, but one that is broad enough that I can give my thoughts on just family friendly Halloween movies, thing like Halloween Town or or I guess Nightmare Before Christmas, or anything that appeared on Disney Channel, or oh god, I can't think of the names, like the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. You know, Halloween movies that aren't scary but are just here to introduce the kids to the season. That's not really a look at a specific movie. That's just how do I feel about family friendly Halloween in general? What's a few notable ones? What's a good thing? Is to yeah. There is I decide. If it lands there, typically it says the guest decides. If it lands there, this week I get to choose which of these I pick. Horror anthology. This is probably going to be the last super broad topic outside of the one above it. We'll get to it. If it lands there this time, karma could be hitting, and I could do that. But if it doesn't, we're just doing movie series and just broadly specific topics like family friendly Halloween instead of just horror anthology, because there is more horror anthology movies than you realize, but that's gonna be episodes gonna be more of a celebration if it lands there. Then there's Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters knocked out the Cornetto Trilogy. That's only going to be referring to the live action movies. So Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters 2, Afterlife, and Frozen Empire. Those four. We're gonna lightly touch on the show and the game, but it's primarily the four movies if it lands there. And then Movie Monsters, Scrimblower, Gungi. I'm not going to explain what Scrimblower and Gungi are until the episode if it lands there. But it's going to be there this time, it's going to be there next time, and every spooky season it's going to come back until we touch on if a movie monster is Scrimblow or Gungi. But no, if you don't know, I won't explain further. But without further ado, let us spin the wheel. Wait, why isn't it? Hold up. Usually there is. Oh, Ghostbusters. Bana, bana, bana. Usually there is a. Hmm. Yeah, usually there's a little sound bite for it, but it didn't play. That's fine because yeah, this episode is going to be about Ghostbusters, or at least the next episode is. It is a bi-weekly podcast. So October 5th, we're going to kick off spooky season with the Ghostbusters. So join us then, and I'll see if I can get a few people to talk about that with me. Thank you all for joining me on this much shorter than usual bit of the podcast. For those who don't know, I upload all of these to YouTube. So all of the episodes, how cringy and long as they are, some go into 4 hours. I apologize for that. Are all on YouTube at the moment. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in 2 weeks' time.